Now, my next guest says the coronavirus pandemic is a political crucible, one that will undoubtedly melt down and reshape the norms and values society currently lives by. But what those norms will look like and what those values will be are questions he's currently grappling with. And he joins me now from his home in Berkeley, California, to discuss them. Good to have you on the program, Jeremy Lent. What's bothering you right now in the midst of the coronavirus crisis?
Well, what I think is coming to my mind the most, especially after hearing this kind of conversation we just heard right now between these two economists, is that people are still not really thinking big enough about the impacts of what we're seeing with the coronavirus. And I really think we need to recognize that the last time we saw something as big as this happening to the world was really the Second World War. And what we're really looking at with the impact of the coronavirus, not the virus itself, but more the impacts as one domino falls after another, is really the end of an era. And it's what I call the end of the neoliberal era. So we're not talking about the end of capitalism, but the end of a particular era that has dominated the last few decades of global economy and thought and basically everything, every part of the human culture. And what we really need to be thinking about is what era comes next and what can we do to actually bring a better life to people.
But before we talk about what comes next, what's on the other side of that door, you could ask 100 people what their definition of neoliberal is or neoliberalism is, and they'd give you 100 different answers. So according to you, tell me how you define it.
Sure, I think it's fairly simple. It's really a fundamentalist market-based approach to the world, saying that everything can be reduced to some kind of market demand with a price to it. Even things that most people through history have felt should not be bought and sold. Things to do with human values, things to do with quality of life, things to do with the earth itself. And along with that has been this belief in the individual as the core basis of all values. So community gets kind of thrown out, and everything is based on not just the individual, but this kind of myth of a selfish, rational individual that we rely on in order to make decisions to make the world a more efficient place.
Right.
Those bases of this kind of market fundamentalism and the individual as the sole basis of values, I think have been shown by in evolutionary biology, all kinds of perspectives to be like plain wrong. But it's the myth that the world is based on right now.
Right. So this novel coronavirus comes along and shatters those myths. What then happens as we pick up those pieces? What kind of world should we be preparing to live inside of in the coming years?
Right. Well, I think that there are, at the most extreme, there's kind of two very divergent scenarios we could be looking at. And the reality may be some interconnection of those two. But in what I view as the more troubling scenario, we actually can look at even more of an authoritarian and big corporate power takeover of the economy and our thought processes and basically every part of human life. So we see more acceptance towards the sort of notion of surveillance state and surveillance capitalism, where it feels like okay for even people to be tracked on their iPhones, everything like that. We also see that some of the potential for some of the biggest corporations becoming even more powerful, for those countries that have given really all the support to the biggest institutions and military sort of shut off of communication between people. All those more negative trends we see as a possibility. There's also the possibility that people around the world, just like Richard Wolff was talking about, are getting angry. And they've already been angry based on these imbalances of neoliberal capitalism, the greatest inequality really in all of history, where just the wealthiest 26 people in the world own as much wealth as half the entire world's population. When those things get to be even more extreme, there's this possibility for a shift towards more humanitarian values and people re-envisioning the whole economy and the whole way in which the world works based on a more humanitarian and human-based approach.
Does it transcend the left and right debates, the capitalism versus socialism and so on?
Yes, I think it does. And I think that many forward progressive thinkers at this time have already left that behind. That's really a 20th century debate. It's not really the debate for the 21st century. And I think that what is very possible is to revision what our actual whole global civilization should look like. And if we think about it from a bigger picture, coronavirus itself will be past a couple of years from now, but we have much bigger existential crises facing our civilization. Like, for example, the climate breakdown, which is nowhere near to being under control. And even if the world goes on the rate at which countries have committed to reduce their emission growth over the next years, we're still looking for, by the end of the century, massive 3 degrees Celsius increase in temperatures, which many scientists think is not even compatible with civilization. And that's not even looking at the ecological breakdown. So if we can envision a different kind of civilization, some of us are calling it an ecological civilization, one that's based on life-affirming values rather than money-affirming values. And that would lead to a very different kind of breakdown where you could have more regional and community-based organization.
Jeremy, I've got to wrap. It's been really great to talk to you. Hope to chat to you again sometime soon. Thank you very much for joining us here on this episode of the